Hey, I'm Rutledge,
Hey, I'm Connor.
and we're Friend Stream Sports. We're real friends who talk about real sports in real time, and well, it's basketball season, Connor. Can you believe it?
We have moved from the gridiron to the hardwood, and I didn't throw my rearview mirror out the window, but I am certainly looking forward. That's for sure.
That's that's some powerful. Wow, that's just a powerful. I feel inspired now. I'm ready to go. We're gonna boot this thing up. We're gonna play a little Sixers Nets. Uh, we're gonna see how this all goes down. As Connor is undefeated in 2K, and I have yet to pull a W. And well, to be full honest to all of our listeners out there, I'm the person who told Connor, "Hey, we should play 2K together. That'll be fun." So, Connor, how's it feel to be undefeated?
It means that I need to buy my wife more flowers. First off, it means that I need to pay more attention during my workday. It means a lot of things, but it also means I have a video game sized feather in my cap. That's for sure. Welcome to all of our watchers, our viewers, our listeners on our podcast here. We are live at the Barclays Center. These are not the most fresh lineups, but these are pretty fresh jerseys, that's for sure, Rutledge.
I I am part of me that, and we're gonna break down the Nets tonight, as I am horrible on defense. Um, Part of me as we go through our broadcast tonight is I love everything about Brooklyn swag. The black and white. I think one year during the playoffs, they had just this amazing look where they blacked out the audience and it looked like Instagram. The court is cool, so I like how it's like a new NBA. What do you think of Brooklyn's look?
Uh, you know, it's always good to have a good look when you are making buckets here, and that's what the Nets are doing. They have some good star power, but no, I mean black's always a pretty solid choice on the jersey. Black and white, classic, uh, and being able to have a little more swag than the Knicks is always a positive piece.
There you
So,
go. Especially when you don't have to deal with that Jersey traffic anymore.
dude, no jersey traffic, and
No
the
Jersey
the old
traffic.
Nets the old Nets swag was very '90s, and in the '90s that was good, but not in 2020.
Nope, not in 2020. But as we come into 2021, we want to kind of break down last week, and let's start with our picks. So, uh, Connor, we had an interesting week for picks last week. We both took the Lakers to uh, beat the Nets last Thursday, and we were wrong. The Nets won all the way around is definitely showing that without AD, the Lakers are in a lot more trouble as they lost four of their last five starting on Sunday. We also,
Including three in a row, yeah. No,
yeah,
that's no AD. I thought that the Lakers were going to be a little better, especially remember the Nets don't have Kevin Durant right now.
no,
So uh, definitely had some issues there for sure.
definitely had that. Another one of our picks that we had was we had Jazz and the Clippers. We both took the Jazz. That did not work out. The Clippers won. And then we had our poll picks, including for Daytona Road Course. I actually got correct on the poll winner. You picked Martin Truex Jr., but I picked Chase Elliott. Um, so Chase Elliott did not win though. Josh Wakely is still dominating our fantasy NASCAR league, and I am. For some reason, something's wrong with all these competitions we're doing, Connor. I'm not doing well. How are you doing in fantasy NASCAR?
Well, we do have a few folks who have yet to set a lineup, so in that way, I am not dead last. But to the folks who have indeed set a lineup, I am dead last in that pool. So need to get on it here. Last week, I took the piece of, hey, it's an early season or early in the season, but it's a long season. So let's maybe try to pick a couple sleepers, save some folks for later in the year. Just remember to all those who do play fantasy NASCAR with us that we have, you can only pick a driver 10 times throughout the course of the season, and I am finally on the board. So dead last in fantasy NASCAR, but I'm feeling pretty good as we're going to continue. And I know we're going to get here in a minute, but as we continue to talk about Champions League, I am feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, we had last week our pick. I took Sylvia versus Dortmund. You took Dortmund. You were right. We had our must, bust, and trust. So my must, I had Bayern Munich. My bust is, and they won. My bust was PSG, and they dominated Barcelona. And then my trust was Juventus, but they won in a 2-1 game. Connor, who did you take?
Yeah, so my trust was Atletico Madrid, who played today, had a 1-0 shock loss to Chelsea. Thomas Tuchel's really got Chelsea, playing really, really solid soccer right now. And, I think it's just very surprising, very surprising. Chelsea with their wealth of offensive talent, definitely nothing to shake a stick at. But, Atletico was the team that really had it going on. In terms of bust, Liverpool, I'll still hold on to the bust. Rutledge, I don't take the round of 16 games as necessarily how to judge a bust, in that as, it's really going to be once you hit to this next round. When you get to the round of 8, when you get to the quarterfinals, you're going to have some teams with a chance for upsets. PSG, Barcelona's just not that good. They have Messi, but they really are struggling for sure. Man City plays tomorrow, I believe. Man City has won 17 games in a row in all competitions.
That's
Rutledge,
impressive.
want to know a funny thing about Man City?
Tell me.
So Pep Guardiola is such just a tortured genius that in December when they started this, not just undefeated streak, but not even draw streak. He was saying, my teams aren't winning by enough, so we're going to go to the drawing board and change up some of our tactics just to make sure and help us win by even larger margins. So Man City's really got it going on. They're getting close to wrapping up the Premier League. I still have a ton of confidence in them as my must. Make a very deep run, if not have the Champions League trophy come all the way to Manchester.
That was a really solid take with a really good SWAT in there. I'm sorry I just interrupted you. That was some good defense there, Connor. As we tick down here in the first quarter.
Yeah, I think one of the things as you do follow Champions League, right? It's there's a second leg to be had, and will there be an upset? Probably per round, sure, but really when you get to the quarterfinals, that's when you're going to have some really, really, really interesting matchups, right? I mean, Munich versus Lazio, sure. All right, let's see how that plays out. But I want to see Munich get a quarterfinal draw against Real Madrid, and see how that goes, right? And then, really, what you're going to probably end up having in the semifinals of the Champions League is, 3 really solid teams. Probably your Man City, Juventus and Atletico. But then maybe you have a Mönchengladbach sneak in there. Maybe you have a couple, one team. So the quarterfinal round of the Champions League, I think, is where you're going to see a lot more of these busts, a PSG flame out, if you will. I think PSG is going to take care of business against Barcelona. Absolutely.
We will definitely see how it goes down. Of course, the next round of Champions League is not it's not till March, right? We got a little bit of time.
Yeah, there's a few games tomorrow.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're
Leg 2 starts
taking
March
a little
9th.
Champions League break.
All right. Well, as we go, as we're into the second quarter here, the reason we're playing Nets versus 76ers is we're actually going to do some breakdown of the Brooklyn Nets, who are very different than what's on the court tonight for Connor. So the Nets are actually a 5-second violation on me because I'm playing a video game and doing a sports show at the same time.
By the way, thanks for our podcast viewers who will listen to us struggle through playing a video game and run a sports show at the same time.
Yeah, that is a big shout. By the way, I want to give a huge shout out to let everyone know. Of course, it is 8 o'clock. It is Tuesday night as we are on Twitch. Connor and I are 1 YouTube subscriber away of hitting our goal for 40, as we are 6 months into Friend Stream Sports. To have 40 subscribers is a goal we set. Help us hit that goal. Click subscribe on our YouTube channel. Search for Friend Stream Sports. We are 1 away.
Yeah, thanks to all 39. We needed numbers 1 through 39 to get to 40. So Thank you to our subscribers.
To our subscribers. One day we will have merch to give you. But
Except for Daniel Mogg, we'll get Mogg his merch very soon.
we'll give Russell Wilson Daniel Moggs merch when we meet Russell Wilson.
Oh, no doubt, that'd be a great idea.
Anyways, back to hosting a sports show. So the Brooklyn Nets are 20 and 12 this year, which includes 11 and 5 at home, 9 and 7 on the road. Here's a big stat for you, Connor. They've won 6 in a row. They were 5 and 0, and during that time, KD missed a bunch of those games, and Kyrie didn't start all of those games. Um, this week, their schedule, they have the Kings, the Magic, and they have the Mavs, which we're going to pick at the end of our show tonight. Their scoring leader, though, KD leads them in a lot of categories. He leads them in scoring and rebounds, while also Embiid with the shot. You got to get that. KD leads them scoring, and DeAndre Jordan leads them in field goals. I do want to have this interesting information for you. Most teams, you'll see one superstar is dominating. KD, Kyrie, and James Harden all have over 25 points a game, with the lowest being James Harden at 24.9 if you round up. James Harden actually leads the entire NBA in assists with 11 assists a game. So there's some pretty big stats there. Connor, what is your takeaway of the Nets, who, of course, the big NBA story was we talked about them before with KD and Kyrie before the season. Now they're brought together. What is your takeaway of the Nets where they're at now?
I think you've got your big three right, and I think as we mentioned before, the Nets went in and they had a big time win against LA without AD, but they didn't have Kevin Durant. I think that in a lot of ways this team's best basketball is in front of them. One of the things to remember is even with your quote big three kind of teams, Rutledge, you'll remember this being a Heat fan. When the Miami Heat were doing their thing, they had Chris the Birdman Anderson, who he was not the star, he was not the stud. He knew his role, he embraced his role, and he kind of had a little bit of a cult following. When the Orlando Magic were doing their thing and playing really well and had a bunch of all-stars playing at really high levels, they had Matt Barnes as a guy who was really making a big impact for them. Maybe not necessarily every night on the stat sheet, but just in terms of that mentality and that culture. What the Brooklyn Nets have, and a guy Jeff Green, who's actually dealing with a shoulder contusion right now. He's a guy who's embracing his role, and that role is to be a wing player that sometimes needs to play center, because the one thing that the Brooklyn Nets are that can be a blessing and a curse is that they've got three guys that don't necessarily have a position, right? You've got Kevin Durant, the 6'11" guy who has the handles of a point guard. You've got Kyrie Irving, who famously told James Harden, "You play point guard, I'm going to play, or you play point guard, I'm going to play shooting guard," right? And then you're telling that to James Harden, the guy who seems to like to shoot just a little bit, if we remember him from his time in Houston. So that's one of the things that, assuming that continues to stay ironed out, I think the ceiling is really high for Brooklyn.
I agree. I think January 14th, 2021 is just going to be a day that lives in infamy for the Brooklyn Nets franchise, as that was the day that they acquired James Harden and then all of a sudden took off and just started dunking on everybody and making a really big deal. Offensively, they are a nightmare, even if they don't have Kyrie and KD in the lineup. They win in a variety of ways, to coin a great Connor term. Um, Defensively, they are the number 26 ranked defense in the NBA, and that is based off that is off of NBA power rankings, and that's also a defensive stat number that the NBA pulls together, which means they're in the bottom five. But that doesn't concern me too much. It may be a worry when they get deep into the playoffs in a series um, against the 76ers, but it doesn't make me question them because they're outscoring their opponents, and basketball is very much outscore your opponents.
Give
So
us a little bit of a hot take right now. In a 7-game series as it stands today, who you taking between the Brooklyn Nets and let's go Milwaukee Bucks. I think that's an interesting conversation piece.
that is a very good That is a very good conversation because Nets Bucks, it is. I see that being. Oof. I'm gonna take that, and here's why. I'm gonna put that on, and I need to score. I'm getting killed. I'm gonna put that on a 5-1 series. The 5-1 series is game one, and it doesn't really matter who's at home because the NBA is probably not going to allow fans this year at all, even though we're progressing. 5-1 series, you're gonna have an the Nets are going to come out and they're going to completely out. They're going to lose game one. They're going to come in maybe a little arrogant. I think they're going to lose game one and then they're going to adjust. The Bucks with Giannis, and I think Giannis is a fantastic player. Chris Middleton is not having the supporting season that he needs to have to support Giannis, and Milwaukee is still kind of just built around Giannis Antetokounmpo to where the NBA is moving into a league where it's showing that you can put stars together and they can evolve very quickly. Look at how fast the Brooklyn Nets are doing compared to AD and LeBron James, and then even compared to the Heat with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade. Remember when the Heat, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade all came together, everyone questioned them. The Nets came together, they're going very fast. So I think they would maybe lose a game one to the Bucks, but then run away with it and do a sweep. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, I think as it relates to this quote, the series before this series that we'd hope to see with the Bucks. And don't worry, my next question is, we're going to talk about the Sixers a little bit in that matchup. Yeah, I just think eventually you've got too many stars, right? There's Manalytics, but as our hopeful maybe one day friend of the show, Colin Cowherd, likes to talk about, you need Manalytics, especially in the NBA. It's a star-driven league. Um, the only thing that I could see being an issue would be a big time exploitation um, of Kyrie on defense, as he's not known for playing defense, and James Harden getting tired at the end of the season in a playoff type manner. So with that, who would be your probable Eastern Conference matchup champion here between the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets?
As in, is that going to be the game, or who do you think wins that game, that series? You're
Who do I think
calling.
wins that series?
It's really going to depend on how the Nets evolve. I read a great article on NBA.com that DeAndre Jordan is really trying to take the lead for defense for Brooklyn and sort of help with that because there were some times in his career I feel like Stephen A. Smith has yelled that James Harden just doesn't play defense very well. Um, so I see that going to 7, and I'm gonna put it at 7, and I'm gonna put it as a very close game that could sway either way, but I'm gonna give it to Brooklyn because of star power. Um, when Seth Curry and Joel Embiid are on the floor, they do very, very well together in Philadelphia. However, if Brooklyn just continues to grow into gel as fast as they are, then it's going to be kind of scary to see. So I have that 7. How many do you have that? But Brooklyn taking it.
Yeah, I'd say I'm a Sixers guy. I'd say Sixers and 6. I think that it's definitely a Joel Embiid is a big time issue, and yeah, Sixers and 6, and he can overpower Jeff Green with enough defense to cover those three. A lot of wild games though, but now as we wind down the second quarter, Rutledge, let's talk about some halftime hot takes.
Let's also give a big shout out to our great friend of the show and also our friend who dropped in last week. Daniel Mogg is out here. He's saying, he's made some comments about Matt Barnes. He said Nets need a Kendrick Perkins role. But hey, Daniel, how are you doing? Great to have you back. Great to have you out. But our halftime hot take is here, Connor. So I'm glad you brought up how the Nets would do in the playoffs. We're going to both give our hot takes on the East and the West going into the playoffs. So with the All-Star break coming very soon and the full All-Star teams both announced from the NBA, we think who is going to be your number one seed in the East and number one seed in the West in the playoffs.
So as it stands right now, right in the West, Utah Jazz, LA Clippers, LA Lakers are kind of 1, 2, 3. Suns sitting at number 4. I think that where the Utah Jazz are, tough to put them out of the one seed, although the Clippers could make a run at that. I don't think the Lakers are going to make a big challenge. I think in the East, where it's a lot tighter, um, I could see Brooklyn really making that push for the one seed. So I'm going to go Nets, Jazz.
I am I like that take, and I am with you on that take. As of right now in the standings, Brooklyn is only a half game back from Philadelphia. I can see them overcoming them. I agree the Lakers are going to be in the playoffs, but they're not going to be the number one contender. Utah continues to cruise as they are 3.5 games over the Clippers, so I'm also taking Nets Jazz as my number one seeds for the East and the West going into the playoffs.
Love it, love it, love it. So that is our halftime hot takes, brought to you by Sriracha Hot Sauce, which was on my dinner tonight, as well as the Hot Tamales movie theater candy. That was always a lot of fun.
That's
So
always a lot of fun, right?
halftime hot takes,
And by
brought to you by
Nuprin,
sponsors.
little yellow headache medicine Nuprin. I don't know if anyone buys it anymore, but we will.
That we will, and maybe they'll sponsor us.
Maybe one
What?
day they will sponsor us. As we go back and we wait, did I just quit the game?
We have a new friend stream sports first.
We have a new French stream sports burst. It's called Rally Doesn't. So we're going to live. Are we still live?
Ha!
This is great. We are still live. We are live in French stream sports behind the scenes. Connor and I have the same customized character, so we're gonna restart a game because let's go.
How do we handle adversity here on friend stream sports?
You keep on going. We've had where our signal's gone out. We've had. Do you still want to play Nets 76ers? I do.
Let's do a little Net 76ers.
I think that, yeah, Connor, let's play Nets 76ers tonight. We have a really big show lined up. I think that would be great.
That'd be a good time.
But let's do it in Brooklyn because I like the way the court looks.
Yeah, I'm down.
All right, cool. So, anyways,
As we head into our third quarter of conversation, definitely, one of the big games coming up here is that NBA All Star game coming to Atlanta, and All Star festivities. It is going to look a little different this year, obviously, with COVID and the whatnots, but the All Star game is still happening, and it's been really interesting to hear some of the players' takes on the All Star game. Rutledge.
what great players takes do you have about the All-Star game?
You know, it's a lot of fun to see all these players out. I think that one of my one of my favorite players and favorite people to watch is always going to be Kevin Durant. See how many burner phones he has, and get to see how he handles everything surrounding the All Star game. I think it'll be also interesting to see how much LeBron James actually wants to be there. There's been a lot of talk about players not wanting to be there, players not wanting to have the game, things like that. So definitely going to be an interesting weekend for sure.
It will be a big weekend. I still can't get over that I have snatched defeat from the jaws of victory as I was winning that game and decided to restart. And now I'm down 4-0.
You
Um,
know that you are, Rutledge. That you are.
we're on the board.
So on the board, what do you think, Rutledge? How are you? How do you think this? What are some of the big storylines and some of the big players that you're going to be following in the All Star game?
So I do want to announce that it came out tonight. This is totally off what we have. Is it came out tonight? We have the starting five for each team, and it is Team LeBron versus uh, Team Durant. But here's what I have that's interesting: is that the remaining seven came out. So these are the supporting players that will be on each team. Um, Nikola Vucevic is actually going to be an All-Star player this year, which is exciting for our Orlando Magic that Connor and I support.
He's now a
James,
multi-time All Star, Nick Vucevic.
which is pretty awesome to have Vucevic as an All-Star. With if Orlando didn't have the injuries, they probably would have been deeper this year. But there's one person on the West roster that I don't think should go to the All-Star game, and it's not LeBron James. It's actually Anthony Davis. If there's anything that we've seen with the Lakers' most recent skid, plus how dominant they were in the playoff, plus it's also been tracked that if LeBron and AD don't play together, if AD's not there, the Lakers don't do as well score-wise. If LeBron's not there, the Lakers don't do as well um, defensively. So those two need to be together in order to make a championship run. I don't think that AD should play um, in the All-Star game or should go. It's cool that he got picked up, but even though he's still hurt with some leg issues, I think he should sort of dodge it. So it's
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, and especially right. I think the big thing about the All Star game is the fact that it's such a it's a lot of name recognition. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like the NBA All Star game or even the Pro Bowl, right? It's all right. AD is the second best team on the champion that just so happens to play in LA.
mhm.
What do you think is going to happen? He's got the unibrow, right? He's got the swag. And yeah, I think he'll be there in a boot, and he'll be shaking people's hands, and actually won't be shaking anybody's hands, but he'll be there for the photo ops and whatnot. But
Yeah.
um, in terms of actual literal all star, not my number one choice. Rudy Gobert would probably be a more deserving all star, seeing as he's the center on the number one Utah Jazz. But I don't blame the NBA for making sure that all their stars are out, where there's going to be a lot of television watched for the All Star game.
I agree. So while we have time, since we have so much more showtime tonight to cover, this is the reserving seven that were announced tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern on TNT as part of their pre-show for the Wednesday night doubleheader that they have. Shot goes in. It was the West seven is Anthony Davis, Paul George, Rudy Gobert, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul, and Zion are all on the West team as the reserves, not the starting five.
Dude, I love Zion. He's the
I
man.
I have got so much respect for Zion. First of all, I love that the sponsor on the Pelicans jersey is just Zatarans, just that rice that I would eat. It's like, oh, I don't know
Oh
how to
yeah.
make jambalaya, but this box does. Zatarans.
There was a story that came out about Stan Van Gundy, when he spent time teaching, he would literally make kids cry.
That's
And then
amazing.
when he coached Lamar Odom, there was a quote from Lamar Odom that he said he literally thought for a while that his name was MFer because that's the only thing that Stan Van Gundy would say to him.
That's very motivational. That's great coaching.
I always remember watching Stan when he coached the Magic. Um, he would just be coaching his heart out, and then be Hito Turkoglu just sitting on the bench looking so incredibly uninterested in everything that was going on. But he was shooting threes before it was cool.
That was before it was cool. So there's someone else that shoots threes that makes it cool who I want to talk about in a minute. There's a foul. Here's the West 7 that was announced tonight. Once again, it was released at 7 o'clock this evening. The West 7, the backups are Jaylen Brown, James Harden, Zach LaVine from the Bulls, Julius Randle, Ben Simmons, Jason Tatum, and our own Orlando Vucevic, which I think he should have a nickname that's like Vucci, but I feel like that's disrespectful. Um,
Oh, Vooch. When
oh,
I started watching Vucevic play right when he was drafted out, I always say he'd have the quietest big impact of any player. Like he'd be the guy you'd go through those games, and then all of a sudden you'd look up on the stats, you go, "Oh, Vooch had a double double with
yeah,
like 18 rebounds and 11 points."
it's
He's been a really consistent player for Orlando throughout his career, and it kind of stinks to see just the fact that he has not played on a lot of good teams, but um, it is nice to see that he hasn't been a guy who's been traded around a lot through the league.
which Orlando was known to do. They had Victor Oladipo, who was at one point kind of a star for the system, but they traded him. And of course, there was always the famous Orlando trade of Shaq, who Shaq still has come out to this day. Connor, I know it breaks your heart, but he said he would have stayed in Orlando if he could have done it all over again.
In a lot of ways, he did stay in Orlando, a la where his house is.
That's a la his house. And that blue roof shows that some color choices are bold. Um, let's talk starters of the All-Star game. So Doc Rivers is coaching the East. The East starting lineup is going to be Giannis, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, and Kyrie Irving. and they will play against the West, which is going to be coached by Quinn Snyder, who is the head coach of the Utah Jazz. And on there is Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, um, and Jokic. So with hearing all these lineups, essentially the big three for the Nets made the All-Star game, which means they just get more practice together. Connor, what are you kind of feeling with these lineups going in?
I think that the starters for the East, or pardon me, the starters for the East are better than the starters for the West, especially right now, man. And I think hats off to Bradley Beal. Could have packed it in, with all the controversy around, trading, some of the trades to bring Westbrook into the squad, and yet again, just not being a part of a big time team. Kudos to him. But I think that the reserves for the West are better. All that to be said, it is the All-Star game, so it's going to be a ton of fun to watch because there's going to be nary any defense that's played. So that's always a blast. I think the over/under should be about 400 points.
The last All-Star game, which the West has won all of the last 10 except for one. I think the last All-Star game the score was 192 to 189. So it'll
So
be a
I'm
high
saying
score.
400 points.
It'll be a high scoring affair. It'll be a ton of fun to watch. I'm really excited for this All-Star game lineup. I'm with you. With basically the Nets big three together, the East does feel like it's got kind of an advantage going into this affair. We'll see how hard the players try based on the kind of wanting to be there, kind of not wanting to be there. I am with you as well, Bradley Beal. This is actually his first All-Star game that he got voted into. He was a reserve the past couple years, but he has been putting up monster numbers and is doing extremely well for a Wizards team that is now starting to click. But when they were first got it going with Westbrook, they were struggling. I think they're at one point bottom in the league, or at least
Mm-hmm.
bottom in their section of the league. So big shout out to him. Um, I also
And
find this,
came through all over the place. Draw that foul. No
yeah.
easy buckets.
No, no easy buckets as you go throwback nets. I saw that you snuck that in there when we booted this thing up. Um,
Hey, if you gotta always have a little sneakiness up your sleeve.
always have to have a little sneakiness up their sleeves. So I have this other really cool fact that uh, this All-Star game, besides happening during this very interesting time, has a record of it. This has 5 international players voted in, which is the most international players. Those players, of course, are Giannis, Kyrie, Joel Embiid, Luka, and then Jokic. So I thought that was really cool that the league is getting. I think that shows that the NBA is really starting to make an impact worldwide, to where you have players sort of coming from all over to join in.
Yeah, it's not just your kind of token one international player anymore. I mean, there's a lot of big time players for sure. Um, but so Rutledge, as we enter what's kind of like the fourth quarter, should we get into our fourth quarter topic?
We should get into our fourth quarter topic. Before we do that, Connor, give me your pick for winner of the All-Star game.
Winner of the All Star game, I'm going to go West, and furthermore, I'm going to say Luca is All Star game MVP.
Oh, I am actually going to go West, but I am going to take MVP as Steph Curry. Steph is third in scoring in the league and leads the league in threes. So I think he's going to be chewing on his. I'm pretty sure he's chewing on Invisalign nowadays, but he's going to be chewing on his braces, and he's just going to be draining threes. As you said, the defense will be low, so I think he will come out to play.
Hmm.
So what is our fourth quarter topic tonight?
Fourth quarter topic. We're gonna keep it on the hardwood here, but talk a little NCAA March Madness, Rutledge. And it seems like we kind of know who the best teams are, so we're going to talk about teams towards the bottom of of this tournament here. We're going to kind of ask who are some of the top teams in, who are the last teams in, who are the last teams out, and if there's any one team in particular that you want to talk about during this time.
Yeah, so we're both going to give our take of someone who we think is going to go in for sure, and someone we both think is going to go out. I think that Wisconsin is going to definitely make their way into the tournament, but they have a lot of work to do. They are going to do it on the back of making some shots around the arc. They have the second highest amount of 3 points made in the entire Big Ten. Their schedule is a little interesting as they have Illinois, Purdue, and Iowa. Iowa leads the Big Ten in three-point shots, so they need to win out and have a big win in order to make their way into the big dance and probably have a good showing in their championship tournament.
So in terms, yes. So I would say that in terms of playing their way in, there's a team that if you had asked me this 1 week ago, I would have said something different. But I'm going to go Duke. Duke is, and this is a big time addition by subtraction kind of thing. Their best player quit the team. He's saying opting out, but he kind of quit the team. And Duke is undefeated now with their best player out. They just had a big win against Syracuse this on Monday. They're playing Louisville. They're getting hot at the right time, and I think that the NCAA wants that's not good if you don't have Duke in your tournament. So I'm saying Duke is going to be the last team in. That is assuming that they take care of business against Louisville this Saturday up in the KFC Center.
Do you think they serve KFC in the KFC Center?
Good night. I hope so.
Like
My brother-in-law now lives in Louisville, so maybe we can have him on the show and ask him.
You should. We'll do a friends drop in. One question: what do they serve in the KFC Center?
And why are you not drinking bourbon right now?
Yeah.
You live in the fonthead of bourbon.
Yeah. Plus riding a horse.
Bourbon, horses, all kinds of stuff.
I wonder if the horses drink bourbon.
That must be why they run so fast.
We are definitely
why we think they run so fast.
We are definitely a lot more friends than sports tonight here on Friends Stream Sports.
Dude, good thing that's not getting on our Facebook page.
This is true. We
might get canceled if we talk about horses drinking bourbon on our Facebook page.
I think we are. I don't think anything else bad can happen to us when we are going to mine through the gold mines and find out why our Facebook got taken away from us. But it was definitely a surprise of my day and how I sort of got Connor's attention. One text message of, "Hey, we got kicked off of Facebook. Why?"
And I was climbing a mountain.
You were definitely, that brings a whole different thing to the Sound of Music song "Climb Every Mountain" when you get crushed on the mountain with your Facebook page disappearing.
No doubt.
So
no doubt. So who's out? Speaking of no doubt, who's out?
Who's out with a lot of doubt is Oregon. Oregon is out. Oregon has tried for a while to be a strong basketball conference team in the Pac-12, and they've done okay, but I definitely have them going out. They have the third best record in the Pac-12, but they dropped a 72-58 loss to USC recently, and they really needed that. USC is the only team ranked in the Pac-12, and as far as all college sports go, the West Coast, you have to be very flashy in order to get the nation's attention. So they're in very much of a struggle. So I have Oregon going out. They had
Rutledge, did you just tip a segment?
Maybe.
I'm not being flashy on the West Coast?
Possibly. More to come.
Oh my gosh.
More Zoom calls to come later.
Talk about tipping a segment.
Talk about ticking a segment.
So Oregon is your last team out. I'm gonna talk about a traditional power, and it's gonna be a real shame because the year that the entirety of the tournament is being played in their own home state, I do not see Indiana making the tournament. They've had a lackluster season so far. They're sitting on the bubble right now. A few of their last games involved Michigan State and Purdue. Michigan State, not the team that they usually are, but always a tough out. Could very well be said that Indiana's kind of, they might not come out with that same firepower. Don't think they're going to beat Purdue, so I'm definitely seeing Indiana not make the tournament this year.
That would be a real shame to be at home and then see something bad happen. Speaking of seeing something bad happen, hey Connor, did you pick the all-time Nets team when we rebooted this game?
Sure did.
You dirty dog, you. I've been wondering why I've been getting smoked. And then I realized, that afro looks pretty sweet. Wait, that's Jules Irving. Why is Jules Irving on the current Nets roster?
Hey, that's how. That's how good. That's how much that the Nets needed hope was. They've got Dr. J back.
Because he did that one leaping layup, and I just looked too good. And that's
literally Vince Carter's on the bench right now.
I saw Vince Carter and I was like, was that Vince Carter? There's no way that's Vince Carter. And I didn't want to make myself look like I don't know what I'm talking about. But
He was on the Hawks circa this game.
he was on he was on the Hawks slash also on ESPN in the bubble because the Hawks didn't make the bubble.
Oh my gosh, that is
Welcome
true.
to
Although this game does predate the bubble.
This game does predate a bubble. This is going to be a highlight for this week of Friend Stream Sports when Rutledge learns the truth.
Yes.
When
So speaking of truth, Rutledge, bring us some truth. Which talk about the conferences, right? Which conference is going to have some of the biggest ups, biggest happiness as throughout the NCAA tournament?
you mean which conference is going to have the most of their teams in it, aka be the best of friends that would not pull a fast one on their friends
Yeah, I'm down.
whilst losing a video game? Yeah. Okay. So if I were to pick a conference in that analogy, I would pick um I would definitely say the most team ends is going to be the Big 12, and that's because out of all the normal traditional powers, Kansas is starting to don't you dare. Um
Oh, so close.
Kansas is definitely starting to make a turn. Kansas is making a turnaround. They're probably going to be a lock in the tournament. Texas and Texas Tech do play this weekend, but I see the Big 12 sending in the most teams into the tournament with bringing in 7 total teams. Who do you have bringing in the most?
Yeah, I think especially because of everybody who's down. Yeah, I see the Big 12 not just bringing the most teams, but having the best chance to win it. Right? You even pull Baylor out. Uh, Oklahoma State is who's probably the number one ranked player. Kansas can always make a deep run. It's definitely a going to be a Big 12 kind of year.
Definitely going to be a Big 12 kind of year. I do not have the Big 12 uh, winning the championship though. I have a Big 10 team winning the championship, and that goes mostly on the shoulders of Michigan. Um, but there's a lot of the top of the Big 10 is doing very well. This could be a day to bring out the long yellow shorts and the black sneakers again for the Big 10. But I definitely think Big Ten is going to take the victory in the tournament. You'll have a Big Ten team win. They might play a Big 12 team in the finals, but I have a Big Ten team winning March Madness.
Michigan sure played good this weekend against Ohio State.
They did. They did. They had a good showing. It was a big marquee game, and they're getting a lot of national attention. So plus with like I said, my pick of get down, Brooke Lopez. With my pick of having Wisconsin make it in, that adds to the fact that they might produce a champion. So
That's yeah.
green, good.
I'll say this, Rutledge, that the fact that Brooke Lopez is the all-time Nets center is I don't know what that says about the Nets.
Brooke Lopez is a pretty solid addition for the Bucks, though. He's a pretty good player, but you're right. Like in your entire franchise, it took a modern player to have that happen.
A modern, pretty good player.
Get in there. That should have been a dunk. Yeah, a modern, pretty good player who
Oh
I'm
my
sure is really
gosh.
good to his friends. As we just
Probably.
continue on. Well, so as we go on with that, so that's the NBA. I think we're going to move on to. So Connor, let's go a little bit off the kind of script here. So if you were to look at this year in college basketball, and with how we've talked about how it's sort of backwards and upside down, what part of this year's college basketball season has surprised you the most?
I think that it's the fact that so many good teams just aren't that good this year, right? It's such a head scratching thing, right? You always kind of expect like one team to be down and things like that, but you look. I mean, Kentucky is not even a thought about making it in the tournament. They are, they are just such an afterthought. Indiana's probably going to be out. Duke is on the bubble. UNC is on the bubble. Um, you know, all of that I think is just kind of you look at college basketball in its entirety, and you've got some just the all the blue bloods are going down. That's like saying that Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State, and USC and Oklahoma are all just terrible and maybe not even make a bowl game.
Hmm. I think it's been very interesting to see that experience. I think this sort of tells the tale of two things which we as sports fans take for granted. You're right, it's very strange. That was a nice dunk by Dr. J. Um, it's very strange to see the powers go down. I think it shows one, we forget, and because of how much we elevate college sports, we forget that college athletes are college kids that are between the years of 18 to 22 years old. Some of them are, you know, in the one and done days, some of them were 18 years old and then one and done. 5 second violation, but that's fine. Um, so it's interesting to see how they're responding to this situation versus how professional athletes, like the Brooklyn Nets, are able to sort of bond and do better in these situations because that's what they're really doing. Now, of course, practice schedules are different. They don't have class. There's a different focus, but it's been interesting to see how in college basketball how it's really changed, and that's the sport where you wouldn't expect this much up and down. You might see some consistency, but you might not. So that has been a very interesting take for me for the tournament. The other one I've been surprised in is on how many really truly dominating coaches have really put their team on blast. It is no stranger that Coach K is not happy with how his Duke squad is performing, and that other coaches are just sort of getting out there and are very cranky. Whereas in the pose, college coaches have been known to, if the media really comes after players and really comes after them, they say, these are kids. Why are you saying these types of things? You need to, they're very stand up for them. But when they are not making it work in this bad season and they're used to dominating, because that's the type of people they are, they're responding in kind of a different way. So, Connor, what's that like when you have your coach really get mad at you?
You know, the only times I ever had a coach get mad at me was behind closed doors. I will say I did get yelled at during an after practice film session so loud once that even the receivers in the room next door were asking during dinner who was getting yelled at. So that was no fun. Um, it is, as a coach, I think that they're humans too, right? um, Coaches are humans too, and they've got a ton that they're working through, and all these competing pieces. And I couldn't imagine being a Division I basketball coach that has, yeah, is just everything else to worry about. So yeah, I think that they really need to. I think you always do need to remember, yeah, these are kids, but you know what? They signed up for this. They signed up for they signed up to be in the spotlight in a big time way. So I don't feel too bad for them. That's for sure. Um, Now I think that you can definitely talk about. I think you can definitely talk about just a combination of that, right? Whether or not that's players and coaches, players making the decisions to leave their teams, players making, coaches hearing about players, uh, you know, maybe not doing what they need to do for COVID and things like that. But yeah, it's. I never played for a coach that put me on blast, but I'm not going to say that I don't. Who knows? Maybe there was some reason why Coach K is putting his players on particular blast. But Rutledge, I want to hear from you. Thing is, we're off script. Did you ever have any college, like, did you get to play any college basketball intramurals?
No, I didn't have time for intramurals. My major, when you're an education, a music education major, your day kind of starts at 8 in the morning and your last rehearsal lets out at like 8 at night. So I did not have time to do um, college intramurals. My favorite college sport was beer pong, if we just want to take this as not much of a family show. So I was really good at crushing the arc off of that and doing trick shots at my house, but I did not
I'm just
play.
say if with 8 o'clock, what time did beer pong start then?
Well, as when I was a young lad, that would be you come home, get out of rehearsal, go do some homework, have some dinner, text somebody, wait the 5 minutes for it to go through because of the early 2000s service. Probably like 9:30. I remember my favorite
First shots going in at 9:30.
first shots going in at 9:30. I remember my favorite one was we didn't even want to play beer pong, but it was like a game of horse. We put a cup on a chair on the other side of the apartment by the door and made you basically stand in the middle of the kitchen. So you had to shoot over the kitchen counter, past the table, and like onto the chair by the door, and making that bucket was that was a really big deal. One of my friends made it and we exploded. Like it was
I bet.
if it was Snapchat back in the day, we would have that would have been all we would have done. So that was my intramurals. What sports did you play in college, Connor, besides your football career?
Besides, so basketball, there was always an offensive lineman C League team. Wheaton, you had A, B, and C League. Like the skill guys would play in the A League. My freshman year, the A League team, literally there was a rule that if you couldn't dunk, you couldn't be on the team. So obviously I was not on that one, but played C League, was on the Abusement Park. That was the name of our C League squad. Um, my senior year, we ended up winning. In fact, I remember at the beginning of the game, I tripped a kid, and he got really mad about it. And then at the end of the game, but I like totally denied it. And then at the end of the game, he's like, "You tripped me," and I just go, "Yeah, so." And it was like he was upset that I finally admitted to it at the end of the game. So that was fun. And then I played my senior year. We did intramural Chicago-style softball. So it was just softball with a big ball and no glove. And
Okay.
we were Habitat for Insanity. So
Explain why that's called Chicago style.
I
I
I
would have
have no
expect that you'd be
idea.
like crushing a pizza or something during that.
I have no idea why it was called Chicago style. It just seemed like it was either play intramural softball or like literally go out for the track team. And I was not about that track life.
My defense was not about that blocking life on that play. The lane was so open. That was 4-lane
So
highway.
did that. The other fun thing that we did, Wheaton football, we had a thing called competition night. So in the off season, right, you'd split up into four teams and have a variety of competitions, but you'd have what's called competition night. And there's literally everything was a contest. So the way that your team entered was a contest. The way, there was the competition that I won, and actually my sophomore year, I literally won so much they didn't even do this the next year. They did a donut eating dizzy bat relay, where
Go on.
so ran down, drank a quart of chocolate milk, ran back, or did like a couple dizzy bats, ran back, had two powdered donuts, which those are not easy to eat.
No.
Ran, ran down, did drank another quart of chocolate milk, and then had two more powdered donuts. And there was one kid who it was actually my freshman year roommate. He was a linebacker, and
Yeah.
he like won by a lot the first year. And then I joined the competition, and literally the kid that won my freshman year quit because I was beating him by so much.
Jeez.
Um, like we did a talent show. We competed in that. I
Okay.
literally wet my pants on stage as part of my talent.
Is your
Um,
wife in the room as you're telling these stories?
no, but she knows. Actually, my cousins were there as well. I had family in the room when I literally I did it. We have a thing called senior shares, go football chapel. Like guys go get up on stage and they just pour their heart out about the time in the program. But I found it funny. I mean, everybody just always kind of said the same thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of like mimicked the senior share, but as opposed to like I needed to add something to make it over the top. So I pounded two Nalgene's ahead of time and just just peed my pants.
Did you preface it, or was it people just were like, "Is he peeing his pants right now?" Is
Yeah, no one knew. Like my team knew it was going to go down. I wasn't like, "Hey guys, I'm going to pee my pants." Um, yeah. So did that. That was a good time. I did have to go see the dean in college once because of something I did during a basketball game.
oh, is this a shirtless story?
If you look up, I did my rendition of the Duke UNC Speedo Man.
at at a
Uh,
small Division III Christian college.
yep. And there's a lot of big donors in the room, and they did not think it was as awesome as a lot of other people did.
When you're in
So
college, donors really kind of ruin it for you. We
That's so right.
my big donor story. So at Georgia Southern, which is out of all the fan bases in that I've ever been to, Georgia Southern is probably one of the most ruthless fan bases because for so long being a triple option school in the FCS level, Georgia Southern would just recruit athletes that could run the system and then just outrun everyone. So fans are very much used to seeing scores like 63 to 10. So it made the fan base very arrogant and they saw those scores very quickly. So we used to play the Hey song, which ba da 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 whatever, right? I can't sing too much of it because we lost our Facebook page. But I just hit Brooke Lopez in the head.
That's all right. He scored on you.
But he probably like, oh, thanks. Because we're
Ah,
playing Rutledge's Honest 76ers versus Connor's. Oh, look, the game restarted. Sneak it in there. Best of the New Jersey Nets.
I think that at the very least we'll call this game a draw or no contest, incomplete, maybe an I. I think we need to give that game an I.
There's a whole bunch of asterisks in our friendship right now. I'll tell you that much. This
I'm
is
just
the this
saying,
is this is the
I
start.
didn't
This
quit.
is the equivalent of a Twitch stream steroids era. Connor took
I didn't quit
performance
the game
enhancing
halfway
lineups.
through.
No, that's called a blooper reel. Uh,
So
so
someone felt
so
like they were about ready to be on the wrong end of
I'll show you how to lose.
a comeback.
And so the Hey song. Play the Hey song. You get to the middle and there's just like a drum break. Well, the Georgia Southern fan base used to say, "We're gonna beat the silly word out of you," really loud. Well, the way the stadium was set up, like most small stadiums, the students sit on one side. Who sits on the other side? Donors. So what was essentially happening? What the students were yelling, "We're gonna beat the blank word out of you" at all the people that gave money to the school. I don't know what caused it. I don't know what happened because the same president was around for years. But it just came out one year that the band director was told, "Hey, you can't play that anymore because this is what you're doing. You're yelling at the people that give money to this school very profane things. Profane things."
I
So
don't know how profound that is.
it's not very profound. It felt profound, but it was very profane. We played it once my sophomore year, and it was like the best moment. And then everyone cheered, and then we stopped halfway through. So I think it's time for
Yeah,
picks.
let's do it. That's
Let's
right.
let's do picks. This is still a sports show, so as we talk picks, we're actually going to do our NBA first pick. We have Lakers versus Jazz on Wednesday night. So I am going to take the Jazz because, as we've seen, AD is out. AD is a big part of the lineup. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm going Jazz. They're playing like a buzzsaw right now, and the Lakers are really struggling. And I think even though LeBron actually has the third most minutes in the NBA, I think that he can still save himself during the games, and I don't think he's gonna be interested in carrying the team there.
No. Next, we have Mavs versus Nets, which is on Saturday night. I'm going the Nets. This is going to be a big game for them to just show how good they really are.
Yeah, I think this will be the toughest game this week for the Nets, and I think that they're still going to win this game going away.
Yeah, I think
Take take the Nets to win and cover.
yes, Nets are going to be undefeated this week. So
Yeah, I
next,
agree.
next in college basketball, big matchup in the Big Ten. Number 9 Iowa, number 9 3-point shooting Iowa versus Michigan, the big catch-all. Thursday night, I'm going to take Michigan because they have the better field goal percentage, and college is very much a shooting game.
You know what? Let's go Hawkeyes.
Okay.
I don't have much behind it. I never like seeing Michigan win.
Oh, and at the buzzer,
Buzzer beater. Good job.
Texas Tech versus Texas. This is at Texas Tech. I am going to take Texas because they had a better performance against West Virginia, which both teams did lose, but Texas hung in there longer.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Texas Tech as well. I think that. Yeah, I think that they've got a lot of good swag going on, and I don't like the Longhorns.
We do know you are not a Longhorn person. Last as since we have a fantasy NASCAR league, we always do NASCAR picks. This year, this week, the uh, Dixie Vodka 400 is at Homestead Miami Speedways, which that's really early for NASCAR to be in Miami. Connor, who is your pole sitter for this race?
My pole sitter for the Dixie Vodka 400. I'm gonna kind of go with. I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go Denny Hamlin. Picking him. Got a good feeling about Mr. Hamlin.
Denny Hamlin. That he was, I believe Denny Hamlin was the winner of last year's Miami race, so that's a good pick. I'm going Kevin Harvick. Kevin has been showing a lot of strength. He's looked good in both of the Daytona races and is really kind of dominating this year. He hasn't won. NASCAR has had two different first-time winners this year, um, but he is still making a really big impact.
Well, I think that's our show, Rutledge. I think it was an incomplete, and can't wait to play you next week again here on
We
NBA 2K.
we will definitely call this one a learning experience, and I'm going to pay better attention to rosters. But we want to thank our viewers for coming out. I want to thank Daniel for coming out. My wife came out and watched the show. She watched it right as I quit the winning game and dropped some comments in the Twitch feed. But you know what? She's there, and she loves and supports me. So for that, I am thankful. For that, that's our show. Thank you for coming out. Find us on YouTube and follow us. Follow us here on Twitch. I'm Rutledge.
And I'm Connor.
Have a great night.